I used to believe houses remembered things, not in the haunted, creaking, floorboard way people talk about, but in a quieter, truer way. I believed walls absorbed laughter, that kitchens remembered late night confessions, that door frames held the height marks of growing children like sacred measurements of time. I believed that if you stayed long enough in one place, poured enough love into it, the house would learn your heartbeat and keep it safe. That belief is what made the betrayal hurt worse. The house on Maple Drive wasn't big. It never needed to be. 2 bedrooms, 1 bath, a living room that smelled permanently of coffee and lemon cleaner, and a narrow kitchen where I burned toast at least twice a week. But it was ours. I bought it when my daughter, Clara, was 3 years old, signing papers with shaking hands and a baby asleep on my chest because I had no one to watch her. I remember the realtor's smile when she asked, "Are you sure you want to do this alone?" I remember smiling back and saying, "I already am." For years, the house echoed with Clara's life. Her footsteps running down the hall, her music blaring through closed doors, her tears, her laughter, her slammed doors and whispered apologies. I knew every sound she made the way mothers do instinctively, even in sleep. I thought that meant she knew me, too. 10 days before Thanksgiving, I found out how wrong I was. It started with silence. Clara had always been talkative, even as an adult. She narrated her life like a running commentary office drama. Bad dates, her plans, her complaints. Lately, though her words had begun to thin out, she answered questions with one-word replies. She smiled without warmth. Her laughter stopped reaching her eyes. I told myself it was stress, work, life. The world had not been gentle lately, and I didn't want to be the kind of mother who imagined slights where none existed. But mothers feel shifts the way sailors feel weather change. Something in the air had turned. She started guarding her phone like it held state secrets, tilting the screen away from me, locking it when I entered the room. Once, when I passed behind her on the couch, she jumped so hard she nearly dropped it. "Everything okay?" I asked gently. She smiled too quickly, of course. That smile stayed with me all day. The next warning came from laughter, not the kind shared, but the kind that stopped when I walked into the room. I'd hear it drifting from her bedroom late at night, hushed and conspiratorial. The second my shadow crossed the hallway light, the laughter would die. I tried not to listen. I tried not to wonder. I tried to be the mother who trusted. Then came the drawer. It was a small thing, almost nothing. I was looking for tape, just tape, to wrap a package for a neighbor. Clara had used my desk earlier that day, and one of the drawers hadn't been pushed all the way in. I pulled it open without thinking. That's how lives change, not with thunder, but with the quiet slide of wood on wood. At first, I didn't understand what I was seeing. A printed email, a legal-looking document, notes scribbled in Clara's handwriting, sharp and hurried. Words leapt out at me, disjointed, meaningless until they weren't. Asterisk Thanksgiving. Asterisk asterisk everyone present. Asterisk asterisk she won't see it coming. Asterisk asterisk embarrassment first. Asterisk asterisk then we tell her she needs to leave. Asterisk my hands started shaking so badly I had to sit down. I read everything, twice, 3 times. I needed to be sure I wasn't misunderstanding, that this wasn't some cruel joke or misinterpreted plan. But clarity is merciless. Clara had been planning to humiliate me, publicly, in my own home. There were messages printed from a group chat, friends of hers, distant relatives, people I had fed at my table and hugged in greeting. They discussed how to handle me, how to make sure I wouldn't cause a scene, how to frame it so I'd look unstable, dramatic, difficult. One message made my vision blur. Asterisk she's been living off you long enough. It's time you took control. Asterisk living off asterisk me asterisk. I thought of the mortgage I paid alone for 25 years, the nights I stayed awake sewing hymns and filling out forms, the job promotions I turned down because they required travel, the vacations I never took because braces and tuition came first. I thought of the way she used to crawl into my bed after nightmares, whispering, asterisk, don't ever leave me, Asterisk, and there it was, written plainly in her own words. Asterisk, after Thanksgiving, she moves out. No exceptions. Asterisk, my daughter wasn't just planning to remove me from her life. She was planning to erase me. I closed the drawer slowly, like it might scream if I didn't. I went to my bedroom and sat on the edge of the bed, staring at my hands as if they belonged to someone else. I didn't cry right away. Shock has a way of freezing tears before they can form. My mind raced backward through memories, searching for the moment this version of my daughter had been born. Had I missed it? Had I helped create it? I remembered the first time she called me overbearing. The first time she rolled her eyes when I said I love you. The first Thanksgiving she complained the food was too traditional. I had laughed then. Now I understood. That night, Clara knocked on my door. "Mom," she asked softly, "are you okay? You've been quiet." I looked at her, really looked. Her familiar face, the curve of her mouth, the eyes that once mirrored mine so perfectly. She was smiling, concerned, performing the role flawlessly. "I'm fine," I said. My voice didn't break. That surprised me. She hesitated, then nodded. "Good. I was thinking. Thanksgiving is going to be special this year." I smiled back. "Yes," I said. "I think it will be." She didn't hear the truth in my voice. She kissed my cheek and walked away, already planning my destruction. That was the moment something inside me changed, not into anger, into clarity. I realized then that love doesn't protect you from betrayal. It only makes the knife sharper. And I understood, with a calm that scared me, that I would not beg for my place in my daughter's life. If she wanted me gone, I would go, just not the way she planned, and the house remembered everything. So did I. The next morning I woke before dawn, the way I always had when Clara was small and needed breakfast before school. Habit is a stubborn thing. It survives heartbreak. For a few seconds I forgot everything. The house was quiet. The sky outside my window was still bruised with night. Then the memory returned, not crashing, not screaming, but settling into me like a second spine. 10 days, that's how long I had until Thanksgiving. I didn't confront her. I didn't slam doors or demand explanations. I didn't cry into my pillow or call a friend to say the words out loud. Once spoken, pain becomes real in a way I wasn't ready for. Instead, I made coffee. I moved through the kitchen like nothing had changed. I set out Clara's favorite mug, the chipped blue one she refused to throw away, and toasted bread just the way she liked it, lightly browned, never burnt. When she came in, she barely looked at me. "Morning," she said, "morning." I replied, "Normal, perfectly, devastatingly normal." If she noticed anything different, she didn't say. Maybe she was too busy rehearsing the role she would play in front of our family. The gracious daughter, the long-suffering one, the brave woman finally setting boundaries. Boundaries are such a clean word for abandonment. Over the next few days, I became a ghost in my own life, present, helpful, silent. I listened more than I spoke. I watched the way Clara's confidence grew as Thanksgiving approached, the way she hummed while scrolling through her phone. The way she laughed more freely now that she believed I knew nothing. I started seeing everything clearly. She spoke on the phone in half sentences, but I filled in the gaps. Yes, that'll work. No, she won't suspect anything. Everyone needs to be there. Everyone. I nodded along when she mentioned who was coming for dinner. Aunts, cousins, old family friends. People who had known me my entire life. People who would watch me be dismantled, piece by piece, and tell themselves it was necessary. At night, when Clara slept, I opened drawers and boxes I hadn't touched in years. I found the house deed, still in my name alone, the mortgage paid off 5 years earlier, a fact Clara either didn't know or had conveniently forgotten. I found bank statements, retirement accounts, insurance policies, a will I'd written years ago and never updated because I'd assumed there was time. I realized how dangerous assumptions are. I didn't feel powerful. I felt steady. Power comes from anger. Steadiness comes from acceptance. I thought about confronting her again and again, imagined the words I could say. Asterisk, why are you doing this? Asterisk, asterisk, don't you remember? Asterisk, asterisk, I gave you everything. Asterisk, but every imagined conversation ended the same way, with me explaining myself to someone who had already decided I didn't matter. So I stopped explaining. Instead, I began preparing. I sorted documents into neat folders. I made copies. I took photos. I contacted a lawyer under the pretense of updating my affairs. The man's voice on the phone was polite, uninterested in my emotions, focused only on facts. I appreciated that more than I expected. "Do you feel safe in your home?" he asked. "Yes," I said, and realized it was true for now. I didn't change my routine. I still cooked dinner, still asked about her day, still folded her laundry when she left it in the basket too long. Each small act felt like a goodbye she didn't know she was receiving. Sometimes when she hugged me a brief, distracted, my chest ached so sharply I had to close my eyes. I wondered if she felt anything at all, or if she had already practiced the story she would tell about me once I was gone. On the fourth day, I found something else, a letter draft on the shared computer, saved but not printed, titled simply asterisk after Thanksgiving. Asterisk, I didn't read it all. I didn't need to. The opening line was enough. Asterisk, this isn't easy for me, but for my own mental health, asterisk, I shut the laptop and sat there in the dark, the glow of the screen burning behind my eyes. Mental health, I wondered when love became an illness. The days passed in a strange, suspended way. I marked time by meals cooked and dishes washed, by Clara's growing excitement, by my own quiet detachment. On the seventh day, I chose where I would go. It wasn't dramatic, no grand destination, just a place where no one knew me as someone else's burden. Somewhere I could sit and breathe without being managed or pitied. On the eighth day, I prepared the drawer. I placed everything carefully, deliberately, not in anger, not in haste. Each item had a purpose. Each page told a truth. I didn't hide it, I didn't lock it. I wanted it found. On the ninth day, Clara mentioned Thanksgiving again. "I think this year is going to be cleansing," she said, smiling at her reflection in the hallway mirror. I met her eyes in the glass. "Yes," I said softly, "cleansing." That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. By the 10th day, I was no longer afraid. I had learned something important in the silence. When someone plans your humiliation, they assume you will stay and accept it. They assume your love will make you small. They never consider what happens when love stops pleading. Thanksgiving was almost here, and I was ready. I left before the sun came up. The house was still wrapped in that a morning quiet that feels borrowed from another life. Clara's bedroom door was closed. I stood outside it for a long moment, listening to the soft rhythm of her breathing through the wood, the same way I used to when she was a child with a fever. I didn't knock. Some goodbyes don't want witnesses. I packed light, one suitcase, worn at the corners, the one I'd carried through job interviews and school conferences and hospital waiting rooms. I left the bed neatly made, the kitchen clean, the coffee maker set on a timer, out of habit more than kindness. On the counter, I placed nothing, no note, no explanation. Explanations are invitations to argue, and I was done negotiating my worth. The front door closed behind me with a soft click. The house didn't protest. If houses remember things, then this one understood. Thanksgiving morning was cold and clear. The sky looked scrubbed clean, as if the world itself had decided to start over. I drove without music, without destination at first, just letting the road pull me forward. When I finally stopped, it was somewhere simple, a small coastal town, a few hours away, off season and quiet. I checked into a modest motel that smelled faintly of salt and old carpet. The woman at the desk smiled and wished me a happy Thanksgiving like it was nothing more than a polite habit. I thanked her and meant it. For the first time in years, the day belonged to me. I walked along the shoreline, hands in my coat pockets, watching the tide move in and out with patient indifference. Families passed by, bundled in scarves, laughing, carrying thermoses and folding chairs. I felt a pang, not envy, not regret, just acknowledgment. That life had been mine once. I sat on a bench and let the cold bite my cheeks until the ache in my chest dulled. Back at the house, I imagined the confusion settling in. Clara waking up late, expecting the smell of turkey, already brining, the familiar clatter of pots, the silence instead, her calling out, "Mom," and hearing only the refrigerator hum in response. At first, she would assume I was running errands. I always did the shopping early, always had everything planned. Then the questions would start, her phone buzzing with messages from relatives on their way. Asterisk, what time should we arrive? Asterisk, asterisk, do you need help? Asterisk, Clara's answers growing shorter, tighter, her smile practiced but strained. Where's your mom? Someone would ask, casually at first. Oh, she'll be back soon, Clara would say. She just stepped out, but time has a way of exposing lies. As the hours passed and the house stayed empty, the unease would spread. The turkey would remain uncooked, the table bare. Clara's carefully orchestrated plan would unravel without its centerpiece. You can't humiliate someone who isn't there. I imagined her checking my room, the closet, the bathroom, the garage, each space confirming the same impossible truth. I was gone. No note, no warning, just absence. That absence would be louder than any speech she'd prepared. I spent the afternoon doing nothing I hadn't done in decades. I ate a simple meal at a small diner, soup and bread, served by a woman who called me Han, and didn't ask about my family. I watched the ocean darken as the sun dipped low. I let myself remember Thanksgivings past without rewriting them. The burnt pies, the lopsided tables, Clara as a child, insisting on setting extra places for imaginary guests. Clara as a teenager, sulking at the table, secretly pleased when I noticed. I wondered when gratitude turned into entitlement. As evening fell, I returned to the motel and sat on the edge of the bed, folding my hands in my lap. I thought about the drawer, about the way Clara's hands would shake when she finally opened it, about the sound she might make when understanding dawned. Not yet, I told myself. Let her sit with the questions first. That night, my phone stayed silent. No calls. No messages. Either she hadn't realized yet, or she was too busy managing the growing chaos of an empty house and disappointed guests. I slept deeply, dreamlessly. On the morning of November 27, I woke to the sound of my phone ringing. The name on the screen made me smile, not with triumph, not with cruelty, but with a calm that felt earned. I answered on the third ring. "Where are you?" Clara demanded, panic cracking through her voice. "What is going on?" I laughed softly, the sound surprising even me. "Look in my drawer," I said gently, and then I ended the call. Whatever she found there would speak louder than I ever could. And I was finally ready for her to hear it. Clara stood in my bedroom like a stranger. The bed was made, the curtains half open. Nothing looked disturbed, and that unsettled her more than if I'd left chaos behind. She moved slowly, as though the room might accuse her if she hurried. Her phone trembled in her hand, my last words still echoing in her ear. Asterisk, look in my drawer. Asterisk, she went to the desk. The drawer slid open easily, too easily. She had expected resistance, a lock, maybe, or emptiness. What she found instead was order, care, intention. On top lay a letter, sealed in an envelope with her name written across it in my handwriting. The sight of it made her breath hitch. She knew that handwriting the way children know lullabies. Her fingers hesitated before opening it. Inside, my words waited patiently. Asterisk Clara, asterisk asterisk, if you're reading this, then Thanksgiving came and went without me, just as you planned. I want you to know that I found out 10 days before. I read every message, every plan, every justification you made for humiliating me and asking me to leave the house I built. Asterisk asterisk, I didn't confront you because I wanted you to feel what I felt, the slow realization that something you depended on was no longer there. Asterisk asterisk, this isn't punishment, it's consequence. Asterisk, her breath came faster. She dropped the letter on the desk as if it had burned her and reached back into the drawer. There were documents beneath it. The house deed, my name alone, highlighted in yellow. A copy of the mortgage release, stamped and dated years earlier. A notarized statement from my lawyer clarifying ownership and residency rights. Clara's hands began to shake. She had built her entire plan on an assumption she had never bothered to confirm. Below that, bank statements. Accounts she didn't recognize, ones I had opened quietly, carefully, without her knowledge. A summary page from my attorney outlined what was no longer accessible to anyone but me. Her scream tore out of her before she could stop it. It wasn't just fear. It was the sound of a future collapsing. She kept digging, frantic now, paper sliding against paper, her breath coming in sharp, ugly gasps. At the bottom of the drawer was a slim folder labeled *Thanksgiving. Asterisk inside were copies of the messages. Her messages, her friends' replies, the mocking tones, the careful cruelty disguised as concern. The words *unstable*, *dependent*, better this way*, circled neatly in red ink. Her knees buckled. She sank to the floor, clutching the folder to her chest like it might undo itself if she held it tightly enough. The phone rang again. She answered without checking the screen. "Mom," she sobbed. "Please, I didn't mean it like that. They convinced me." I cut her off gently. "No," I said. "You meant it exactly the way you wrote it." There was silence on the line, broken only by her breathing. "I loved you," I continued, not accusing, just stating a fact. "I loved you enough to give you everything, including the belief that I would always stay, no matter how you treated me." She whimpered, something small and broken. "But love isn't permission," I said, "and it isn't an obligation to be erased. What do I do now?" she asked, her voice barely audible. I looked out the window of the motel room. The ocean stretched endlessly before me, unconcerned with human regret. "You sit with what you chose," I said, just like I did. I hung up before she could answer. Later, when the house finally fell quiet again, Clara would sit alone at the Thanksgiving table. She never sat. She would replay every moment, every sign she ignored. She would realize that humiliation had been her weapon, and silence had been mine. As for me, I checked out that morning. I drove without rushing, without looking back. I didn't know exactly where I was going, only that it would be somewhere I was not merely tolerated, but respected, even if that place was solitude. I had lost a daughter that Thanksgiving, but I had found myself, and that was a trade I would never apologize for.